Welcome to my review of War of Faith. To immediately answer the question in the title, is it still worth watching? Yes, it is. So now, without any further shenanigans, as an actress myself, I will heavily focus on the acting and acting techniques in this series, but also on the storytelling, the directing, and the cinematography. So I want to give you a full review of this series. I have cut the series into 4 pieces, so this is the first part, a review of the first 10 episodes. Before I start with the rest of the review, I feel like there's some things I need to explain about the series and the time period it is situated in. A lot of people might already know this time period, and it's completely fine to watch this series without knowing anything about the time period back then in China. However, it does give the series more depth if you know what happened during that time. So our series is situated in the 1930s in Shanghai. Back then it was a pretty hard time to live in China, because not only had the country been through 2 opium wars in the past, quite recently, the Qing Empire has fallen, and that has created an enormous power vacuum that needs to be filled. However, a lot of the corruption of the old imperial system is still not rooted out. And you can see this by the fact that most of the population was very poor, and then you had a few people who were filthy rich. About 80% of the land was owned by only 20% of the people in China back in those days. On top of that, a whole bunch of warlords emerged during this time. This happens with most of the falls of the empire, that after empire falls, a whole bunch of warlords emerge. So the same thing happened back in the day, back then. Now, unfortunately, there was also a civil war happening. It was between the Kuomintang, which are in power right now in the 1930s, and the communists. Now, most of our main characters, they're actually in favor of the Kuomintang, most of them. And as if all of this wasn't enough, there were also foreign powers that had divided parts of China, so also Shanghai. So the Chinese don't own all of Shanghai back in the 1930s, but the city was divided by a whole bunch of other countries too. This series is filled with interesting filming techniques to tell the story, and some of these techniques we immediately already see in the introduction, so that's why I want to start with the introduction, because it's really well done. The first technique that they use, which is pretty interesting, is completely at the beginning. One of the characters is narrating, and it's Ruolai. He's the only character that's narrating, and it does 2 things. First thing that it does is it tells us that this is an important character and that we must pay attention to him. Then the second thing it does, it creates a closeness between the audience and the character, because we get to see his internal world. We get a glimpse of what he is going through, who he is, and he's also directly addressing the audience. So immediately from the get-go, we get to become closer to Ruolai, and immediately we want to know more about his story in this way. Now, the following scene that introduces Ruolai further is so smart. They've done it in such a smart way, because his whole character portrayal is within only a few seconds or only a few minutes. We see him doing his calculations and doing the accounting, and that tells us he's incredibly smart, but also that he cannot be fooled, because he is able to pick up on the schemings of someone that has been in the business for years and has been scheming for years and being corrupt for years. And he's able to figure that out where the older mafia boss cannot. Then the other thing it also shows us is when this character is being decapitated, is that Ruolai is probably really naive and inexperienced, because somehow he could not figure out by himself that this was going to be the result of him finding out somebody else's corruption. We also see in the shock in his face that he has never seen anything like this before, and worse, he even wants to fight against this. He stands up against this type of practice, which also tells us, wait, he actually has a good heart. He's actually a kind person, But because of the situation he's in, him being poor and not having any other way to survive, he just has to do what he can in order to earn money. That also tells us not only that from his own internal world he's actually a good person, but it also tells us that he is willing to do whatever it takes in order to survive. And then the very last thing, it's only the tiniest seconds that you can see this, and it's when this mafia boss is asking him where he wants to work next. There's just the tiniest twinkle in his eyes, which also tells us, the audience, oh, he's actually passionate about wanting to work where like what he has in mind where he wants to work. So it tells us there's more than snot value to him, and whatever he has where he wants to work, he probably wants to work there out of his own morals and his own passion for the thing he wants to do. In just a very short amount of time, his whole character is being portrayed to us. And the same thing happens with all of the characters after this, which I will talk about. But why I want to go so deeply into the introduction of this series is because it's so well done. For all of the characters that we see, within a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes, we understand their character and who they are. And it's so smartly done from both the writer, in a way he wrote this, and the director that has put the images and the whole flow to this introduction. Both of them worked so beautifully in order to put this whole story on a stable ground in order to get us interested within no time. Now the next character that's being introduced to us, Shen Tunan. From just the beginning, we already get a feeling like he's very well mannered, he's very well behaved, he is almost regal, he has this big energy about him, yet also staying quite humble and quite grounded, and as I said, well mannered, he knows his etiquettes. But then within the next few minutes, what we see with the exploding of the car, he stays so calm. Despite someone wanting to actually kill him, he still remains calm, which almost tells us, is he forgiving? Is he so kind-hearted that he is willing to just forget about this and forgive it? Or is he also something that just does what needs to be done and doesn't take any personal offense in the things people do? He knows the game really well and knows that none of it is personal. Like, which of the two is it? And because of the way this actor is carrying Shen Tunan, I get a feeling like it's actually the first thing that he is so kind and so grounded and forgiving. Now as for our next character, Aunt Jo. She is completely different from our first two characters, but once again with her too, just in the first couple of minutes, we see her whole personality, we see what we need to know in order to place this character already in the story. What we see is that she's pretty money driven, that she's probably used to getting her way, that she wants to play the lady even in this somewhat shabbier neighborhood. We also see that she's used to bossing people around. She's impatient and maybe even a bit selfish, and that's only later in the series where we realize that she also has a motherly side to her. That's only later in the series, so at the beginning we only see this of her, and this is everything we need to know about her at this moment. As for our fourth character, Qiaosong, also with him, we understand who he is from the get-go. We understand that he is straightforward, also that he's maybe quite close-minded. It's his way or the highway. He is cold and he isn't fazed by anything, yet at the same time he's also very calm amidst everything that's happening. And in some way, because of the calm, we start to like him, because this calm tells us that he knows what he's doing, and whatever he's doing, he probably has a reason for doing it. So even with him, within the shortest amount of time, we already know everything we need to know. Oh, and also he does whatever he needs to do, and then he isn't fazed by it, he just does it, and that's it. It gives so much sort of stability within his character, and I think that is what we start to like at the beginning. Now, and as for our last character introduction, Shen Jinzhen, what we know from just also the beginning are a couple of things. She is dangerous. It's a woman not to be messed with. She is knowledgeable. Though, because of an interesting filming technique, which I will talk about later in this episode, we also develop empathy for her. We can see she's really passionate. She's also smart. She's able to think on her feet. And she's so determined in reaching her goal. And that's already from this first encounter with her that we see this. And I will talk later about what the actress does that makes us believe that she is so determined. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned to know how she has done her own character introduction in such a good way that we read all of this out of just this small encounter. What is so well done with this introduction, and so smartly done with this introduction, is within the first couple of minutes that we see each character, we already know everything about the characters that we need to know right now. Just by their actions and the situations they are in and how they respond to the situations they are in, we can read the characters and know everything we need to know at this moment. Also, each of the characters gives us a lasting impression of who the character is. And that's done both via some filming methods, but also via the storytelling. Everyone has something going for them, which makes it so we, the audience, want to know more about them, want to keep on watching Ruolai. First as the shock factor of someone being decapitated in front of him, and then we know his story is not ending because he still has a job to find. And later on we see him going to the stock market, so we definitely know his story has not ended. But these are all things that keep us engaged with his character. Then we have Shen Tunan, whom of course has this attack on him. And so we want to know more about him too, like who is this character that stays so calm whilst someone is trying to take his life? Also, what is he doing that someone wants to take his life? So we also want to know more about him. Then we have Qiaosong, who is also being attacked, but then by someone way beyond the scenes. So we also want to know more about him. Then we of course have Shen Jinzhen, who is the one attacking Qiaosong, who we also want to know more about. And she's also the one who is fleeing from the whole scene. So where is she going to? Who is she? Where was she coming from? There are so many questions that are not answered yet. Yet there were some filming techniques with her that immediately got us hooked on her, that we do want to continue watching. We do want to know who she is and why she was there and what she was doing in the first place. And then we also have Auntie Jo, who has lost on the stock market. And we also want to know more about her and how it's going to continue between her and Ruolai, because she was so angry. What could happen? So smartly done how the whole stage of this entire series is being shown to us in just a few minutes. It's so great. It got us hooked and it got us to know everything we need to know just at this moment. And of course the characters change later on, but for now at this moment, in order to understand all of the characters, they have done an amazing job. Because sometimes when there's so many characters being introduced, we lose track of whom is who and what happened to them. But just because of the way they filmed this, some techniques they used, and then that everyone has something going on for them, makes us that we don't forget them. We know who they are in a organic way, and we want to continue watching. This intro, so well done. What this introduction also does, it doesn't only introduce us to the characters, but it also introduces us to the time period, and we want to know more about this time period. Why? Because of all of the attacks. It's one attack after the other, someone bombing someone else doing a sneak attack, and it makes us wonder, why is one Chinese person fighting against another Chinese person? What is going on here? it tells us and it shows us the division that there was in that time between the different political systems. It also gives us a hint at the corruption. And another tiny thing that's happening that also tells us everything we need to know about the corruption is the moment the police does not give back the money to Wei Ruolai. It's such a tiny amount of money, but the fact that just the police on a street are unwilling to give that tiny amount of money back to Wei Ruolai tells us everything we need to know about the corruption, because a system must be so corrupted if something as tiny as that starts to happen. There are two last things in this introduction I want to talk about with you guys. One thing is the narrating continues, but only in one other place, is when Wei Ruolai is walking through the street where he lives. Now, together with the way the camera is following him, and the way the whole set is made, the music that's playing, and then on top of that the narrating, it gives this whole street such a homely and cozy feeling. And we immediately know, okay, this street is probably going to be important, and all of the people living here are probably going to be in some sort of way important to us too. Because otherwise he would not be narrating in the street, and otherwise this street would not get the amount of attention that it gets. And then a bit later on in the same episode, there is such a smart way of Wei Ruolai and Shen Tunan coming together. Wei Ruolai gets to know about Shen Tunan's existence in an organic way, in a way that also gets him enthusiastic about wanting to work with Shen Tunan immediately. But also the thing it does, it makes us, the audience, know who Shen Tunan is, how smart and how good he is, and in such a high position he is, and rightly so, because apparently he's got all the skills one needs in order to be on top. However, he's not boasting it himself, he's not telling it himself, and that's so fitting of the character, because what we later discover in series 2 and the whole way the actor is carrying Shen Tunan, we can see that Shen Tunan would never say anything like this about himself. He's way too humble, kind and well-mannered in order to boast like that about himself. So this way of introducing Wei Ruolai and Shen Tunan to one another, even before they truly meet in the series, is also such a smart move of the writer. After this first introduction and telling you all of the reasons why this introduction is so well done and so great, I want to go into the acting work now. So the first acting work I want to go into with you guys is the work of Li Jin, who plays the character of Jinzhen. From the get-go, this actress is so good, because the first thing we see that also creates closeness between us and her is the way she's behaving in the heat of the moment. She's in the middle of a battle, a attack on someone else, and what she sees in front of her and everything, it just screams panic, it screams fear, and it screams a whole bunch of other emotions that come up when one sees a lot of their friends being shot in front of them. But she, as the actress, holds everything in, and we can see the struggle in her eyes, the struggle of one wanting to scream out but not being able to do so, and the whole situation asking her not to do so. We can see the struggle in her eyes, and that's exactly the thing we as an audience pay to see. And we see that so beautifully in only a few seconds. She's not screaming it out, she holds everything in, and the whole struggle is visible in just her eyes. What also makes it so beautiful is the struggle between what is going on in her inner world and all of the emotions and the panic raging there, and then that she so clearly has a goal she has to achieve right now, which is to get out of that place as soon as possible. She had a goal before, it was to save these people. She wasn't able to do that, so that already creates struggle and friction within a character, within a person. And then on top of that, now she has a new goal, and it's to flee as soon as possible, whilst she is panicking from the inside. And we can see this struggle within her, where she has this goal, she must continue with this goal, but internally she did that so wonderfully, and it immediately draws us in. It immediately draws us in the sense that we see in some way, whoa, this is a powerful woman, because she continued like that after the first initial panic. But it also makes her so human. And like I said, this is the type of stuff we as an audience pay for to see. Now for our next actor, which is Wang, who's playing Shen Tunan. The first time I watched this series, I fell in love with his acting work. He is a really good and solid actor. He has found a certain way of holding Shen Tunan that matches so beautifully with every situation he's in afterwards. He can play very hard, he can play very loud, but also very soft and kind and sweet. And through all of that, he remains Shen Tunan. He stands in his role full of conviction of being Shen Tunan, that we believe everything he does from that moment on. Even in bits and pieces, like I said, where he's able to play harsh but soft and switch between those two very quickly, we still believe it's Shen Tunan. And why is that? It is because of this ingraining of the character, and because there is always a reason to why he's behaving in a certain way, and those reasons are inherent of the character. For example, in this episode, in episode 3, he explodes out of nowhere, but we still believe him and we still think it's truthful to the character, because very quickly afterwards we realize there's a reason for him exploding. Him exploding is his way of trying to get Ruolai to confess whether or not he's a communist, just by the shock factor. Like this second he's shocking him, he is throwing everything out he can, in hopes of, if he would actually have been a spy for the communist, he would have told him back then. So it's to get the truth out that he explodes. And later on in episode 5, this episode, we see him explode in a different way. We see that he is angry, but there is again reason for his anger, and actually there's even another emotion, another feeling behind that anger that is pushing the anger outwards. So it's a multi-layered performance he's doing here. The thing that's beneath the anger is concern, proper honest concern for Ruolai and the way he's playing with his life. The anger then stems from this concern and wanting to explain and get it ingrained into Ruolai's brain that he is never allowed to play with his life in this way. And then behind that concern is some kind of closeness he has with Ruolai. And you can see all of that in just these few minutes. It's such good acting. And this is only able to come out, one, because of really proper, good homework the actor has done. Ingraining of the character within him. Having these goals, wanted to strive for these goals, which is to explain to Ruolai and to keep Ruolai safe from himself. That is driving this character in this scene. And that is what makes him such a good actor. There's one scene I want to show you where it's so clear that good writing and good character development and creation within the actor come together and form something beautiful, and that is this scene. It is a power move that's happening here, because this other actor, the other banker, he's yelling, he's screaming, he wants to get his way almost like a little child, and that loses all its power. Whilst Shen Tunan, he stays so calm, he stays so grounded and almost in a way regal, and just with one comment, Ruolai, don't get physical, he has the upper hand, because he doesn't need to scream for power, he doesn't need to scream for attention, and he does have the upper hand. He doesn't need to go into these nasty little things and details the other people are trying to do in order to have the power. He knows he already has it, so he can stay calm and relaxed, and such a power move of the writer. Then the actor having ingrained this character within him and having brought the character to life, and of course also part directing. Yet, a couple of seconds later, what happens with the backhanded comment Shen Tunan throws is that we also see that he's not a pushover. In any sort of way, he might be forgiving, he might be calm, he might be grounded and a better leader, but he's also not a pushover. If someone goes a step too far, he will also put them back into their place. Another episode where you can see the skill of this actor is in episode 8, where he's on the phone with his superior. He's on the phone talking about the country and wanting to do something which improves the country, and we can see just by the whole way this actor has ingrained passion within his body, the way he's using his body to display this passion, the way he's completely engaged with his phone conversation. It all tells us everything we need to know about Shen Tunan at this moment, that he is so passionate about his country and so engaged with whatever he thinks is best to do for the country. It's really, this actor is carrying Shen Tunan in such a great way, and even being on the phone, he's still so engaged with the story, so engaged with what he wants to do, that we fully believe in him and we fully see him almost like crawling into that phone in some way. And that's such great work of the actor, to have us believe in him so much when he's just talking on the phone, and to be able to convey the whole point of passion and true, honest and sincere engagement with his country purely through a phone conversation. He's done that so well, and also the play with his body he has done so well. And there's another actor in the series that plays so beautifully with their body. But I will talk about that in my next episode, because we don't have time for that in this one. This is what happens when great character writing and then great character development and ingraining it into your system as an actor come together. You believe the character fully in every way and everything he's doing. One of the other actors I want to touch upon is the actor of Qiaosong. It's phenomenal. I can only say that, phenomenal. Where Shen Tunan also is changing his behavior, his attitude quite a bit, Qiaosong has to do so even more, and we can already see bits and pieces of that during the first 10 episodes, where he behaves completely different in front of his superiors. He behaves submissive and almost a bit scared and afraid, but then in front of other people he is this cold and merciless man with a very hard exterior. And then in other episodes, he's a lovesick puppy. And through all of it, he remains Qiaosong. It's amazing. I want to say so much more about this actor and this character, because there is so much more to dive into with his character. But I will do that in other episodes, because I think I can do a full episode even about him. It's phenomenal, it's great, and to show how great he is and how much he still remains to be Qiaosong, yet changing his whole vibe and the way he's holding himself. I want to watch a snippet of episode 5 with you guys. Oh, sorry, I can't, man. What makes the scene so good is also story-wise. It gives us another view of Qiaosong, because what we've seen so far of him is quite cold, submissive with his superiors, but towards the rest of the world he's quite cold, almost as if that is all there is to him. But this full snippet in the episode gives us a completely different view of Qiaosong, and we see that he actually has a heart. He is actually just as any other man who strives to receive love, it gives him a heart instead of just a heart of stone. And the acting of this actor is also amazing. It's so good, like any woman who has ever had this, where a man, his brain just shuts off when he sees you, and just, he was able to copy that perfectly. I can imagine that would be quite hard to fake. It's awesome how well he's able to portray this side too, and even still stay in Qiaosong. The last part I want to talk to you about for this episode is the cinematography. So what I've done with the cinematography and with the color palette, I really like. They have used mainly neutral colors and a lot of browns, a lot of greys, and none of the colors seem truly saturated in some way. On top of that, in some scenes there's a bit of a smoky vibe. It gives us a certain feeling of the harshness of that time, not being a lot of color in the city being industrial, so being filled with a whole bunch of nasty gases and fumes. I see this more often in series of the 1930s. For example, Peaky Blinders does this too, which the city has a sort of similar vibe. It's an industrial city, and Shanghai is also climbing up to become a port city and an industrial city too. So I like what they've done with the colors and with the color palette, and in that sense with the lighting and everything. Things not being completely saturated, but there always being this sort of bleak color palette about everything that gives way to the heaviness of that time. Besides the colors, they've also used a whole bunch of very interesting filming techniques, and some of them they've already used 4 times, and it's the technique of breaking the fourth wall. Now, what is breaking the fourth wall? It is the technique where an actor breaks the wall that's between them and the audience. It's when the actor either directly addresses the audience, like with narrating, but there are even more direct ways of doing this. The most direct one I can think of right now is with Enola Holmes. It's then where Millie Bobby Brown is in a story, and then she literally turns to the camera, looks into the camera, and is directly addressing the audience with both her face and her voice, so not only the narrating. But this series has a couple of more subtle ways of breaking the fourth wall, which have a very interesting effect on the viewers. So the first one I already mentioned, and it's narrating, where they also break the fourth wall, but then where someone is just addressing the audience just with their voice. But they have 3 other times where actors seems to be looking into the camera. They're not addressing the audience directly, they're still within the story, but they're very clearly, or at least it looks as if, they're very clearly looking directly into the camera and directly looking at us, the audience. So the first time they use this technique is with Jinzhen. It is in the first few moments where you get to know her character, where her people are being shot in front of her. She draws back, she leans against this wall, as you can see, and for only a split second I have this very clear feeling that she was actually looking into the camera, or at least having her eye line towards the camera until she diverges from the camera again. What this does with her, certainly in the situation she's in, it immediately creates a closeness also between us and her as the character. Because for a split second we can see into her internal world, we can see how stressed out she is, and there's a whole bunch going on behind her eyes. We see and immediately get pulled into, why am I getting goosebumps? Pulled into the scene with her and what she is feeling. It's such a smart way of doing this, and I have to say the actor must be such a good actor in order to do this. Because of course, looking directly into the camera, what you're normally not allowed to do as an actor, it also has the potential of breaking your own wall and your own idea of being in the scene, because normally you create your own bubble where you're in a scene in this imaginary world where you then act truthfully. But when you have to look into the camera, Bai is your internal imaginary world, because all of a sudden I can see the lens, and all of a sudden I can see the person behind the camera, and the sound guy, and the this, and the that, and the... So it takes a skilled actor to do this with precision and stay within their role and stay within what they're feeling and trying to convey to the audience without falling out of their role. And she does this in such a great way, because you can see in her eyes when she's looking at the camera, there is still this one goal she has. And I will talk more about her in my second episode, because she is awesome. The second time we see someone looking directly into the camera, or I should say chronologically in the series, it's actually the third time. But I want to touch upon this one first before I touch upon the second one. So the other time when we see this is when Ruolai is also directly looking into the camera when he's speaking about his brother and this type of need and motivation he sees in his brother that he also has seen within other communists. What this technique does, Wang Yibo looking into the camera at this moment, combined with the music and the words he is saying, it not only creates this closeness between the audience and the character Ruolai, but the other thing it does, specifically with all of the other things, the music and the words, is it's almost directly addressing us, the audience, to also stand up and fight for these things and to believe in the things the communists back in the day were also believing. It creates this almost call to action. And now for the last bit, where we also see this technique being used, it's when Ruolai's brother looks straight into the camera right before he's about to die. And it's during a very intense scene, and a very intense moment in a scene where he is looking straight into the camera. And what happens is that him looking into the camera is actually a substitute for Ruolai. Because at that moment, this technique is not being used in order to create a closeness between us and the brother of Ruolai. No, it's actually a substitution for Ruolai. It's a substitution where Wang Yibo now doesn't have to act, but we can directly feel for his character what we would feel when our brother would be dying in our arms. It creates again a closeness between us and Ruolai, because we are being put into the shoes of Ruolai. The camera is literally substituting the actor Wang Yibo in this case. And I have to say, I think Wang Yibo is perfect for this role, because what he does, he is very good at subtle acting. He's very good at letting the medium work for him, letting the camera and the story and all of the editing that's being done afterwards work for him. He's not putting on extra layers where they're not necessarily needed. He stays pretty calm. He's not as big in his actions as some other actors are. And I mean that in a good way. Because what this does, it creates way more space for us, the audience, to think and to experience what we think the character is experiencing. But it also makes him perfect for a role where once in a while the camera is even substituting him. Because he, as the actor, already allows enough space in his own play when he is on camera for us, the audience, to work with him. And that makes it also easier to even put the camera directly in his line of sight, where he would have been looking as a character. So in that sense, he's perfect for this role. And I want to touch upon this a bit more. I want to touch upon his acting a bit more. He understands the medium and he lets the medium work for him. He does enough to carry the story and to carry the character without overdoing it, without overplaying it, without over-giving. And you can see this so beautifully there's this snippet in episode 3 where just look how he changes immediately into little puppy. And what are the things that make him change into this little puppy? It's a slight shift of the way he's holding himself and the twinkle in his eyes. That's it, that's everything he needed in order to show us that he is proud. He did not need to do more in that scene. Where you can also see this very clearly is already in episode 1, when he is together with Auntie Jo at the stock exchange. She's completely exploding, which is in line with her character. It fits her character. But when you look at Wang Yibo and the way he is acting, he's not overdoing it. He's actually staying calm in some sort of way, though we can also already see and feel that there's more going on, that he feels stressed out. But the way he's acting, he's not throwing it out there like Auntie is doing. He keeps it in and he behaves so natural in that way. And he's so good at doing this. He's so good at giving us exactly what we need in order to see and understand the character, and not giving more than that. And there's another scene I think he has done really good, and that's a scene where he plays drunk. And it's really hard to play properly drunk, because some people overdo it, some people are really trying to act and play drunk. But that's not being drunk now, is it? Because when people are actually drunk, they're drunk people acting to be sober. Because no one wants to be drunk, no one wants to lose face in admitting that they're completely drunk and they cannot stand on their feet anymore. And he plays this in a very nice way. You can obviously see he's drunk, he cannot even stand straight anymore. But what makes it good is that he's not necessarily playing into the drunkenness, certainly not as soon as he meets his friend. There's something he wants to do, and that's to share this enjoyment he has felt and everything he has seen at the house of Shen Tunan with his friend. And that's his one goal at that moment, and that's everything he's striving towards whilst not being completely sober anymore. And that's so perfectly done, because even when you're drunk, the thing that makes it funny and the thing that makes this play funny is him still going for his goals, how small that goal might seem and how stupid it might seem to want to have this goal right now and to want to achieve this goal right now. That's what makes it funny. And that's what also makes us want to believe that he is actually drunk, whether or not he is. My last reason for why you should watch this series, the last reason I will give for this episode, is the fact that they have chosen to go with the financial world and to take the financial world in order to show the corruption, to show everything that's wrong with the country. Of course, corruption mainly also happens financially, but for most movies and series, they mostly go for something that's automatically more action-filled, something like a spying drama, or like heavily centered around war or another part of the politics. But this one goes directly into the finances, which is such an interesting take on it, because you wouldn't necessarily think that a financial drama would be so engaging to watch, would keep you in suspense all of the time. But it does. They have put just enough action in it, but just the storytelling itself, even with the financial world, when there's no necessary action in the sense of people shooting guns and driving cars all around, there is still enough action in there to keep you engaged. There are still enough problems, so to say, to solve in order to keep us engaged with the story. And even some of the action that is in this series is not as action-filled, screaming like as in Fast and Furious kind of stuff. It still keeps us at the edge of our seats, but in a, I think, more truthful and more engaging way, because it shows just enough tension and it creates just enough tension even in the stillnesses that they put into this series. And it's a very good way of storytelling what they've done. And then what the writer has written and the way the director has brought it alive with his vision is such a perfect combination that constantly keeps us in suspense throughout this whole series. It keeps us so engaged, and it also makes us care about justice in this system in such a organic and truthful way. It just takes us by the hand and shows us the things that are going on, which are inherently very unjust. But it also shows us how much the characters truly care for what is happening and how much they're willing to fight for the injustice that's happening. And it also makes us become more engaged with it, and also makes us become interested and become engaged in the justice we do want to see on screen. I absolutely love that they have taken the financial world as their point of view in this series, because it's not one that someone easily takes in these series, but they made the absolute best out of it. So for this episode, this was it for me. In the next episodes, I will talk way more about the acting techniques that I've seen and way more about the cinematography techniques too. But I could not fit everything in one episode, and that's why I divided the series into 4 episodes. So the next one will be about episode 11 until 20, and then we just go on until we finish at episode 40. There are so many good things to say about this series, both in storytelling. The acting of our main characters is amazing, but of all of the other characters, it's really well done. They have a very strong cast for this series, and yeah, I can only say watch it, because it has become one of my favorite series so far. So let me know down in the comments below what you think of it, if you have any more questions for me, if you want me to touch upon anything in my next episodes, let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to give this a thumbs up and to follow my YouTube channel if you want to see more of me. So that was it for me. See you next time. Bye!